Hey YouTube, I'm Mars1952, and today I'm working on my tractor. It's a John Deere 4300 that was stolen and then recovered, and I've got it back. So this tire, both of the rear tires on this tractor are filled with calcium chloride solution. I did it myself, and I'm going to show you how to do it. I couldn't get calcium chloride solution. Everybody wanted to use windshield washer fluid or antifreeze that was not the regular antifreeze, but the bio-friendly antifreeze. And at the time I was set on getting as much weight in this tire as possible. And later on I'll weigh it and I'll show you how much it weighs. So I wanted to put calcium chloride solution in this tire, in both of the tires, because it's heavier than antifreeze. I couldn't find it to buy it, so I decided to make my own. I have an industrial blender. I'm not going to bother showing it to you. It holds about a gallon of fluid at a time. That's what I ended up using. But when I read online, the guys online said, well, they just took a 5-gallon bucket, put some calcium chloride pellets in there, and stirred it in water. It melted just fine. Melted up, and then they poured it into the tire. I tried that, and I couldn't get the stuff to melt very fast. It might have melted, but it would have taken me a week to finish the job. So I had this industrial blender, so I'd add calcium chloride to it. And I did some experiments to see how much I could add to the water that was in the blender and have it mix up and not settle out. So I was getting a super saturated solution. But you can do it any way you want as far as making the fluid or buying the fluid. To put it in, I got this bucket, and a nice big bucket, and I put a tap on the bottom, just a regular hose bib with parts I got from Home Depot. You can figure that out yourself pretty easy. Short length of hose, and another little adapter, which I can't find because I haven't used it for 10 years. Goes on the end of the garden hose and hooks up to the Schrader valve on your tire. So I laid this tire at about a 45-degree angle. That way, as much of the rim would be under the water as possible when I filled it. And then just by gravity, this valve would have been up here but on an angle, and the bucket would have been up high. Just by gravity I filled it until no more water would go in there, no more solution. Every once in a while I had to burp it because there's air in there and there's no way for the air to get out. So as you add fluid, it compresses the air. So since I wasn't doing this under pressure, I had to burp it frequently. But eventually I got it filled up so that when I stood it back up again, all the calcium chloride was above the rim. The rim was completely immersed in it. A little bit of air on the top, which you have to have air in your tire if you want it to work correctly, even if you're adding windshield washer fluid. You need to have air in there because it can compress, whereas windshield washer fluid and water will not compress. So if you have your thing filled with water, it's going to maintain its shape and not deform on the ground, so you won't get that nice footprint. And it's my personal theory that once you have it filled up mostly with water, you don't have to have the full 30 pounds in here. You can have 15 pounds or so, and that'll allow the bottom of the tire to depress, deform to the ground, and it'll give you a better footprint. That's how I got the fluid in there. So now the problem I have today is that when this tractor was stolen, it was gone for a year and a half, and not too long before it was stolen I noticed there was a leak in the tire. I've got that leak turned up. So a little bit of the fluid is leaked out. I don't know how much. I don't have any way of testing how much it is. And that fluid's got to be above the rim, otherwise the rim will rust rapidly. So I have a little gizmo rigged up to test it, and I'll zoom in and show you how to do that. Now you can just barely see it. Get the moth out of there. Maybe it's a butterfly. You can just barely see right here there's a wet mark. And that's from the salt that is leaked out of this little bitty hole. And the atmospheric moisture condenses on there and makes a wet spot. And if the tractor is parked where this is on the side of the tire instead of being directly up, it'll leak just a little bit, and you get salt crystals out here. And of course the first time you drive it, they go away. So this has been leaking for about 2 years, and the leak is really slow. I'm not sure it's even fast enough to bubble. I've got this is water with a little bit of dish soap added to it, and if this is leaking here, we'll get a bubble. So I've tried this before and we're not getting any kind of a leak at all. So the first thing to do is I bought a brand new tire punch kit. I didn't need to buy the whole thing, but I needed the glue to patch the hole, and they didn't have just the glue, and it would have been more money in fuel to run down just glue than it would be to buy the whole kit. So that's what I did. So the kit comes with one of these things, which is like an auger to ream the hole. So I'm going to find that hole again. I have to dry this a little bit. Okay, so the hole is right there. Now I'm going to try to put this ream through there. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know how tough the tire is. If I can't do this by hand, I'll use a drill. The other trick with this is you never really know. Especially on a small hole like this, you never really know where the hole actually goes. It might be on an angle, and I might be boring a new hole. This tire is pretty tough. Okay, I've made it through. So to make that hole the right size, you've got to pull this ream in and out a few times. I'm a little too close really for you to see what's going on. Alright, so you've got to pull this ream in and out. Now we should get leakage here. Now I'm just going to go ahead and let all the air leak out. I'm hoping that the fluid won't come out as well, but we'll see. Alright, you can hear that easily. Okay, so I've let the air out, and I'm going to now test the level of the sodium chloride solution in there. Not sodium chloride, calcium chloride, and magnesium chloride as well. So I've hooked up an ohm meter. I've set it 1 ohms. You can see when you make connection, the needle moves a lot. So I'm going to test to make sure I have a good connection to the rim here by connecting to the rim through the paint. I just painted this, that's why it's off. See, as soon as it touches the rim, I should get a reading. And hopefully some part of the rim is making contact with the fluid, so we'll see what happens. Alright, so I've got alligator clips on the end of the tester. And somewhere here I've got a piece of wire. Here's the wire. So I have a piece of wire. This is just steel wire, but it should work. So I'm going to put it down through the hole I just made. Make sure that we're not getting a contact. See, nothing happens until I get down in there. Let's see. Okay, so now we're down into the fluid. So that's just like barely touching the fluid now. Bring it up a little bit. There it goes. Goes away. Comes back. Okay, so that's where the fluid is. Let me pull it out and test it. I'm going to hold it right here. And put this roughly even with that. So I have just barely enough fluid. If I go down, the metal, the part of the rim that's in the that's touching the fluid is all the way down to here, so I'm a little above it. I'd like to bring it up to about here, so I need to add about 1 inch of water. Normally there is not this much traffic. I think they just come out when I make videos. Alright, so let's put that in there again. The wire's not in there perfectly straight. So if I push it this way, nothing too much happens, but I push it that way, it gets down in the fluid. Alright, so I want to add at least 1 inch of water. Let's make it 1.5 inches. So I'm going to pull this up 1.5 inches, about that much water. You see now we're not getting anything. So I should be able to add water to that until I get a reading. So I rigged up an adapter to go to pump water into the tire. This is just a regular Schrader valve, and I bought this to replace like a backup for my air hose. This piece adapts 3/4 inch hose to 1/2 inch national pipe, and then I just cobbled together a couple pieces to go from 1/4 inch national pipe to 1/2 inch national pipe. This is not particularly tight, but it doesn't need to be. Now this valve will only let water out or air when you push on the middle. If I can get in there to do it. Put a little pressure on there first. So when I turn on the hose, a little burst comes out, but nothing else. So hopefully it won't spray the... So when I push on that, water comes out. So I'm going to try to put water in here. And this little... The way this is set up, I still have the valve in here. I have the valve here. So air won't come back out, water won't come back out. Okay, we're getting some of the water in there, hopefully. I don't know if you can hear it, but I can hear the water coming in. At least I'm glad that the fluid never went below the level of the rim. A lot of old timers will tell you don't put calcium chloride in your rims, in your wheels, because it'll rot your rims out. But if you're careful about keeping the water level above the rim, so the air that's in there only comes in contact with the tire, you're going to be in good shape. This has been these tires have been loaded for more than 10 years. Alright, I gotta rest my thumb a little bit. So loaded more than 10 years, and they're not rotted out yet. Now they might rot out tomorrow, I don't know, but we'll see. My original plan was to if the rims rotted out, I would use that as an excuse to go out and get agricultural tires and rims, because those can be set wider and give you a wider footprint than these can. I reversed these and it gained me a whole 2 inches. Just changed them side to side. I'm going to rock it a little bit to see if it's getting close. Alright, we've got to be getting close by now. Come on. Gotta rest my hands again. Been better if this was a straight on adapter, or one that could clamp on, even better still. Oh, we're getting it. Must be sloshing. Okay, We've got a good connection here. Okay, I was almost done and I dropped my favorite meter that I've had since 1973 and broke it. I might be able to fix it. But I dug out this one that's even older. This belonged to my dad. I'm going to test the level again. See if I go down just a little bit. There it is. Alright, so that's the level. And pull that off. Mark it. I'm going to mark it with the top of this tread. Pull it out. So my water level is up here. The rim is down here. So I've got a good inch of water above the rim now. All I have to do is plug the hole. Okay, I got my fresh kit with the reamer. I'm going to run the reamer down there a couple more times just for the heck of it. There's no air in the tire. So you have this gizmo that holds the plug. It's already got glue on it. Got to thread it through here. Okay, thread it through. Now you've got to smear it with glue. Brand new tube of glue. Got to pop it open. Once you open these things, they don't last long. That's why I had to buy this. I've got tons of plugs. I've got all the gear to do this. You want to get everything coated and wet so that it will slide in there, and you don't have a whole lot of time to monkey around. Okay, put the lid back on this thing. Now let's try to put it in. This is always the hardest part. Getting the plug in. Especially on a tough tire like this. Alright, so it's in now. Put it in a little bit further. Now, you should be able to pull this out without pulling the plug out. There we go. Now there's no air in there right now. You don't really have to take all the air out to plug a tire. I could put air in it right now, but I'm going to wait a few minutes, give the glue a chance to seat up, and then I'll air it up. Okay, I've got it loaded with water, got the plug in, and now I'm going to air it up. I'm only going to air it up to 20 psi. I was considering even 15. You need to have some air in a loaded tire, otherwise it won't compress. It won't compress, so you won't get a footprint. The tire will just stay completely round. You hear that gurgling. Okay. Okay, as you can see, this is all set up now. So I'm going to cut it off. Actually, I'm going to check it for leaks first before I cut it off. The soapy water on there. Looks good. No bubbles. You don't need to cut the end of the plug off. I'm just doing it for looks. And if you're worried about whether or not your beloved tractor tire will leak after you plug it like this, I'm going to say no. I've plugged dozens and dozens of tires this way. Everything from cars, ATV tires, truck tires. This is the first tractor tire I've ever plugged. But it's a fairly low pressure tire. I don't see any problem at all. Alright, it's not leaking. So it's aired up, watered up, and ready to go. Well, that's about all there is to it as far as loading a tire with calcium chloride and getting the level just right. Now, I know a lot of you guys out there have brand new shiny tires and brand new shiny tractors. You're going to be reluctant to poke a hole in your tire to get just the right level. So you can guess it like I did when I first did this job. I just put it on an angle and filled it up, just put as much as I could. That left quite a bit of air in the top. Of course, you need the air so you can get a good footprint. If you put too much fluid in, the tire won't deform to fit the ground, so you won't get as good a traction. Now, if you really are dead set against doing calcium and you want to do some kind of other liquid like beet juice or windshield washer fluid or antifreeze, any of those things will work. And if it doesn't freeze where you are, you can just put in plain water with a little bit of anti-rust and use that. If you want to do windshield washer fluid or something like that, there's a guy, BILLSTMAX, I think is how you pronounce his username. It's I'll put it right up here, or actually over here, and down in the bottom I'll put a link to his page. And he uses a portable sump pump to pump fluid out of a bucket into the tire, and it works very well. The only thing he did that I don't agree with is I think he put too much fluid in, and then he aired the tire up as much as it said on the side. When you have less air to compress, you can't have as much pressure in there, or the tire won't deform as much. Like if you have the whole tire full of air at 30 psi and you put a certain amount of weight on it, it's going to compress all that air in there. So it takes a big volume of air and makes it a smaller volume. The same if you have a little volume of air, you try to compress that, there's not as much air to compress, so it builds up pressure faster. So you don't get as much of a deformation, don't get a good footprint. So that's all for today. About 100 cars drove by while I was making this video. Take it easy. When I was editing the movie, I saw that the segment where I weighed the tire didn't come out, so I'm going to weigh it again. I've got a postal scale here that'll weigh up to 450 or up to 400 pounds. When I put the fluid in this tire, I estimated that this weighed 450 pounds. So we'll see what it does here. I'm going to let it down on here slowly so that I don't break the scale. Oops, turned off, darn it. It doesn't stay on very long. It's on battery. Gotta get it off there. Okay. Let it down slow. That's 100. 250. 300. 50. 390. 402. 404. See if we can get that up on there. You might be able to see that if you zoom in or go HD. 390. Error. See, it's going up to the pretty darn close to 400. 402, 404. Then it errors. That's it. This thing is, can't let it get away from you, that's for sure. A lot of weight there.